Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 19th meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. As a reminder, this meeting is being conducted under the auspices of Executive Order 202.55, with the last update by Governor Andrew Cuomo to his original executive order authorizing meetings of public officials to be conducted remotely. Before we go to the Pledge of Allegiance, may I confirm that each planning board member is alone or not subject to an influence on how you would vote by anybody else? Ms. Weiser?
I am alone.
Ms. DiNapoli?
I am alone.
Ms. Wasser?
I am alone.
Vice Chair Dexter?
I'm alone.
Thank you. Please join me as we salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing for Hyde Park Town Center North. For locals, this will be known as where the new Mavis is, the Domino's Pizza, Emergency One, etc. May I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved. Ann Dexter.
Second, Ann Weiser.
Will everyone raise your hand and say aye? Aye.
Aye.
No abstentions or nays, so the motion carries unanimously. I believe Ms. Leibel will be coming in for this one. There we are. Hi, Kelly.
Mute. Okay, there we go. We're unmuted. How are you?
We're good. So this is just an extension of time in which to complete substantial construction because I can't remember which building number it's known as.
It's the Feeds Plus and the Amish
Right.
Market. Yep.
That building has not been redone yet. So first, let me start with, I don't think there's really any comments from the board? Ms. Weiser, Ms. DiNapoli? Yes, Diane.
The comment. Hi, Kelly. It's nice to see you again. It's been a
You
long
too.
time.
Thank you.
Yes. And these are just maintenance issues since we're reviewing this. I know previously you have taken, cleaned off the graffiti on the old Grand Union building, but it has come back. So I would ask that maintenance be continued to present the best foot forward for y'all. And also the plywood that's replacing a broken window. Can you just paint that plywood, the color of the awning, the gray, so it doesn't stand out? I mean,
Okay, I'll look at it and see. I drove by the other day, but I shouldn't have missed the plywood, but apparently I did on the broken window, but I'll check.
The plywood's been there for
Yes.
years. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if it could just be painted, that would be great. And keeping in the spirit of maintenance and maintaining maintenance, in the front where you have the clock and all the grasses were planted, they look very overgrown and it just gives a very unkept look.
I actually saw that yesterday, and I will defer to the chairman, but those types of plantings, that's actually it's typical for them. I'm not a fan of those grasses because they do look very untidy.
Yeah.
Chairman Dupree, I'll let you chime in if you'd like to, but they're the same grass that's on the plaza to the south. And again, not a fan because they're very unruly and, right. So other than pulling them out, I don't think that.
No, you can't, you can see how much of a gardener I am. They can't be trimmed back.
I don't know, I can check, but yeah, I don't think so because I think they'll die. I think that's the plant. And I saw it yesterday, so I actually parked in front of it and saw what you saw.
Yeah, thanks.
Ms. Wasser?
I wanted to add, since we were out there walking, painting the concrete bases of the two lampposts right before the old Grand Union. They're concrete. Diane, I know that you pointed out to me yesterday and you didn't mention it, so I just want to make sure if you're still interested in commenting on that.
Absolutely. All lampposts should be the one color black from top to bottom.
We should, moving forward, and I agree with you, by the way, personally, but moving forward, I just have to make sure that they're always on the plan showing as painted black, but yes, we'll
Yes.
add that.
Because the bottom parts aren't. Thanks so much, Kelly.
You're welcome, thank you.
Vice Chair Dexter?
No comments.
Then I will, so I guess we're not going to take action tonight. Do you want this plywood painted before we extend? Can I see nods or agreement or?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
These
Okay,
few
and-
items.
Just to point out, the grass that you're referring to, that bluish grass.
Yeah.
That's the nature of it. It's flopsy mopsy, as we used to call it in high gardener terms. Tad and I have grown to be kind of both not very fond of it, to be honest with you. And I think that maybe this was something that we probably shouldn't see so much of in the future. But at the time, it was what Mr. Boyce, I believe it is, proposed.
Yes.
And I wasn't really that familiar with it, so I think we're kind of stuck with it for now. But if the applicants want to change that at some point in the future, as long as they talk to Tad and me, I don't think that would require a site plan amendment. Maybe we can neaten it up in the future because it does just fall over everywhere. So
Can I
to-
ask one more question? I'm sorry.
yes,
Could it also be that too much was planted? Can some of it be
Oh.
taken out? And, I mean, I don't know. So that it's still like there's no spaces, but it doesn't look so jammed in.
when you're overplanting like that to do a mass look, one of the things you're trying to do is you're trying to reduce the amount of weeding so that more plants inside
Enough
cause
said.
less maintenance to go through. So that's why, and
We
grass
would
is,
have gladly done less.
yeah, as I say, this was done so there wouldn't be bare spots in through there, if you recall. I know that when you, in some of the beds that are, or the landscape beds that are run parallel or that line the north-south access road, it looks as though the grasses have taken over from everything, you know, sort of over everything else. There was a mix of plants in there at one time. So we know it's aggressive, but that's really something we can address in the future. But if I'm hearing correctly, what you'd like to do is have graffiti removed and the plywood painted sometime before the next meeting. You want us to take action at the next meeting? Yes, to extend?
And the
Yes,
space
and
of the
the
poles.
pine should be the same color as the awning, the gray, so it gives some order.
I put that gray. I'm
Yeah.
just concerned that if the board doesn't take action and that approval lapses, are we,
You're in process, so the approval, as long as we're,
Won't lapse.
yeah.
it won't lapse? Okay.
I was just going to say, we're in a funny situation with another application. They were looking for an extension of which time to complete construction as well. These are townhouses. It's a really old application, Kelly, and all their permits from DEC have lapsed. So instead of extending when there's no valid permits for them, we are holding the public hearing open on this
Oh,
for
okay.
6 months to give them time to get everything to
Understood.
the DEC.
Okay.
So long as it's in process, it won't expire. That's the whole
Okay,
thing.
very well.
So if
Your
you'll talk to
request
your-
was timely, so.
Yeah.
Thank you to Cynthia. Yes, I have to thank Cynthia for that.
Michael, we should confirm that there were no public comments and no one in the waiting room.
I was just about to ask, but before I did, Tad, do you have any comments? You're muted still. Okay. Mr. Councilman Krupnik, was there anyone in the waiting room who wanted to speak about this?
No, there is no one in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you. Then I guess what I'll do is ask for an adjournment to the September 2nd meeting. Kelly, would that give you time to slap some paint up?
I think so. Yeah, it's just really paint. September 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Making a motion to adjourn to September 2nd?
Yes, so moved. Stephanie Wasser.
Second, and Dexter.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? None, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Kelly, we'll see you in just a second.
Perfect.
Kelly,
Thank you.
there's a 10-day waiting period after the hearing because of this virtual meeting. So the extension will actually be granted in the middle of September.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, very well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Dutchess County Boces. As a reminder, the applicants are looking to consolidate 4 lots into one. So for, amongst other reasons, they won't need a transportation corporation for a new water and sewer system. May I get a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved, and Weiser?
Ms.
Diane,
Napoli,
you're muted.
you're still muted.
I'm sorry, I was busy reading. Second, Diane DiNapoli.
That's okay. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Wells, no new plans yet.
No, sorry, this will be a quick one. I'm still waiting to hear from my surveyor. Apparently he had problems with his server crashing in the storm. So hopefully we'll get something for you in the next meeting.
Interestingly, that's actually, we've heard this before, but a completely different case.
Yeah.
That the server crashed. I guess that was a really rough storm. So, and
Yeah.
don't be sorry for us. We're sorry that we can't conclude this to go forward. So,
Alrighty.
are there any comments from the board or consultants?
Hi,
There
Fred.
being, there being none, Councilman Prepnick, has anyone joined to speak publicly about this?
Nope.
So may I get a motion to adjourn this public hearing out by 2 weeks to September 2nd?
So moved, Diane Tenapoli.
Second, Ann Weiser.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Wells. We'll see, I hope in 2 weeks.
Alrighty. Thank you much. Take care.
The next item on the agenda is the biggest file we have for tonight, probably the biggest room for discussion. It's Hyde Park Town Center. This is what is called Park Plaza. And the applicants, again represented by Ms. Leibold, have submitted plans to reface the primary structure for residents. That would be where CVS and more recently Williams Lumber are. As part of the refacing also, there's going to be a relocation of the existing Mid-Hudson Regional Early Learning Center, which is behind CVS, over to where Williams used to be. And let me turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you probably did a very good summary of what we're doing. Again, this project has actually, we've been discussing it, I think, for almost a year. And that project being the architectural improvements and the changes to the building facade so that it more mimics the plaza to the north, which I think has come out quite nicely. We met with the board, not the board, we met with a small group maybe a year and a half ago and presented some of the plans that we had envisioned for the improvements to the exterior of the plaza. And based on that meeting, we left with some design changes, mostly had to do with a cupola, some exterior improvements to the stone columns, some window changes and the signage. And so we went ahead and made those changes and again, resubmitted in an informal fashion just to see if it met the spirit of the comments that we had received at the meeting, which I believe that it did. And then we decided to move ahead and submit this plan. In the interim, as many of you know, Williams Lumber unfortunately has left the plaza and left the town of Hyde Park, and we had this empty space. We did receive information from Westchester Medical that they wanted to relocate into the Williams Lumber space and make some improvements to the interior of that space for them. At the same time, we also had another tenant that has a daycare that would like to occupy the Westchester space. So hopefully those two end units and anchor units will be filled. And we're hoping to review the architecture with you tonight and some of the changes that we made to the site plan. We added some additional landscaping on that main thoroughfare in front of the plaza. I think years ago we took some of the landscaping out that's directly in front of the plaza where the pedestrians walk. There's little planters there, and so we added boxwoods back to that. We did add another playground outdoor area for Westchester Medical because they're now relocating to the south end of the parcel, which is behind the former Williams Lumber kind of storage shed that they had in the back, and provided some crosswalks and so forth for the children to safely go from this interior space to the exterior playground. That really is the summary of the improvements that we're proposing. So we're hoping to get your feedback today. I can tell you that these daycares, obviously with everything that's going on in the world today, daycares are very important, particularly with those who have, if you have school-age students, you'll understand the stress that we're all going through with school. So daycares are becoming increasingly important, and both entities are very anxious to get moved into their space so that they can hopefully open up soon thereafter once schools open.
Thank you, and we're delighted to see the expansion of a business. I have a couple of, before I go to the consultants, I have a couple of things to say. First, the plan, I believe that the burger plan, I should say, not the architectural elevations, but the burger plan appears to have a lot of older data layers on it. The notes to the right talk about McDonald's construction and septic. I think those probably need to be removed.
Okay,
I'll go into those later on, but that's just, it was very hard to read.
understood.
I think we'll probably need a new parking chart to show what the parking is as the uses have changed since we last did that.
Okay,
And last, just for these preliminary, according to Ms. Moss, the back then St. Francis Learning Center was classified as a medical use. So is this medical, educational, or daycare for Mid-Hudson Regional? Do you know how you would describe the use?
my understanding of it is I probably inappropriately use that terminology, and it's semantics, but I think it's early childhood learning. I believe that's what they
So
call it.
educational. That's what I thought. It's an
Correct.
educational
Yep.
use. That
Yep.
just affects the parking.
Yep.
Let me start over with Ms. Axelson comments. Liz?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that the reason we have sheet SP1 is to kind of get feedback. So I just tried to focus mostly on macro things, and when I do my comments, I'll give some recommendations on
Would
how
you
do we
like,
pull this all together.
I should probably have Councilman Krupnik call the site plan up, sheet SP1. Oh, thank you.
Magic.
Okay. So just to go back over, building 1E, the north end is going to be daycare, and the south end will be the Westchester Medical's Early Education Center. Am I understanding that
Yes.
correctly? And I know one of the things that Pete and I both looked at was what's happening with the lumber shed. Is that going to stay? Is that going to be, what's the use of that?
So at the moment it's vacant, and we don't have any intentions with a tenant at the moment. So at the moment it's a vacant structure. We would hope to try to utilize that in some fashion, but at the moment there's no plans for it.
Okay. And just focusing for a moment on the Early Education Center. Let's see. Where are the entrances and exits going to be? So for example, when parents are picking up and dropping off kids, is that going to be on the west side or the south end?
I actually don't have the answer to that, Liz, but I can get that. So you want to understand the pickup drop off for both facilities? I
Yeah,
guess.
kind of
Okay.
have some concerns about how that area is going to operate. So I see you have the, crosswalk going over to the playground area. Pete and I both kind of focused in on some of the things near there, like a big propane tank. So
Yep, those are being removed. Yep, they have to be
Those are being
removed.
removed. Okay,
Correct.
good.
Unfortunately, they haven't been removed yet. I drove by there a few days ago and I thought that they were, so they are to be
Okay.
removed.
But I mean, we can, I think, work with labeling them to be removed. And then of course, there's the question of the loading area. I don't know how much activity there is in that loading area behind the building, and will trucks be, for example, driving between the southern end of the building by the lumber shed to do loading, or?
Well, for the moment, there's no lumber, there's no use for that storage shed, so it's a vacant shed. If someone wanted to come back before the board for some, amended use for that structure, we would probably have to address whatever their vehicular requirements were.
Right.
I would have loved to have made it some sort of a outdoor, indoor kind of play area for the kids, but it wasn't suitable for that.
It wasn't suitable, but what about, so there are retailers in there, I'm assuming they receive, they must have trucks that come in to bring merchandise.
Oh,
So
you're
that's-
saying trucks in general that deliver to the back of the facility?
Yeah. that
Okay.
was another
So we had
concern.
discussed that with the prior approval, and we can go over that information. So we had a one-way circulation where trucks, they come into the plaza at that main signalized entrance, and then they take a right and they travel south, and there's a one-way circulation around the back of the building for deliveries.
Okay. And then, let's see. The other thing I noticed is, well, obviously we're gonna want more details on the proposed playground. What's the fencing? what kind of equipment will be in there, what's the surface. And the other thing I noticed, because Cynthia was kind enough to send us all the 2014 site plans, I think those are the most current before this.
Yes.
There used to be a stockade fence there that was supposed to serve as a buffer. So I'm going to put that in my comments. Is that going to stay, or is that going to be taken down and it'll now just be whatever fence?
Where was there a stockade fence?
It would have been in the southeast corner. Like if you look at where you have
The playground.
the playground. If I could share, I could.
Well, so what I think what you're saying is on the approved site plan, it shows a fence. There isn't one that was constructed. And so are we keeping it there? And so
Right.
my guess is no, we didn't ever, you know, for whatever reason, it didn't get installed. So we need to address what we're doing there for screening.
Okay. So you probably end up removing the fence.
Well, it's not there, right? It's
Not there. Okay. Okay, that answers that question.
I don't think the fence is there. I'm pretty sure it's not. So,
Okay.
so I
So-
think we'll just have to show what we're doing for screening.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I think those are my, and then the only other thing was, because the shed is there, the play area is kind of like L-shaped. I mean, obviously that's however they decide to operate there. I understand you probably kind of had to squeeze it in. It's almost like, too bad you can't just take the lumber shed and shove it north or something like that.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know if it's a movable thing, but you know, it's kind of a corner playground area, so it just looks like a supervision. Or
I
safety
honestly
issue.
thought the same thing when I saw it on the plan and I went out there, and it's very deceiving. But if you navigate past the pretty high vegetation that's there and you actually go behind the shed, it's probably one of the nicest places on the whole property because it's like a nice, flat, quiet area. I think that we can make it function perfectly and will be a nice place for the kids, and it would probably be pretty quiet in the back. Maybe we get more of it in the
Gotcha.
back than in the front.
Like it might even be their preferred lobe of the, okay.
Yeah, we will though, we'll give you the playground details for the fence and the surface up to the tenant, what they put in there for the children to utilize. But
Right, yeah.
we can certainly identify what the fence and the gates and the surface will be.
Okay, all right, and let's see. So, you know, we're generally pleased with what we saw in terms of architecture. I know that at some point we'll need some kind of coordination between Building 1E and the architectural plans to kind of show what are the proposed occupancies. And Michael already mentioned the parking, you know, calculations table so that we have a sense of what are we dealing with. And then signage will look nice. The other thing we're gonna need a zoning table, which you know, again, that's on the 2014 plan. So somehow they'll have to rework that. for the
Okay.
whole Plaza. But a couple of things occurred in discussing this a little bit with planning board members. And it's very similar to what we considered on the northern part of this plaza, which is maybe it's possible to take, for example, I wish I could point, but if you look west of Building 1E, there are a couple of blocks of parking, and there's a striped island there. Two rectangular striped islands.
I'm
And
unable to kind of see where I can't use my cursor, I don't think, to see.
can I share?
Liz, you can annotate. Just go up and click where it says you are viewing Neil Krupnick's screen.
Yeah.
Go to view options and then go to annotate.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So these are the two islands I'm speaking about.
Okay.
And so the idea was, well, it's pavement with striping. Is it possible to put planters there instead with a couple of trees? And then the other thing was that, you know, I'm looking at online information, street views and stuff. I'm not sure that this parking lot ever really fills up. So, and I did notice there's certain to be certain areas of parking that are needed. Like there's a couple of handicapped places over near the Stoutenburg building. Most people are going to park up near the plaza front. I'm just using my pen now as a cursor. And obviously you'll need the parking over near the daycare for staff and kids. And the bank is probably mostly drive-through. So I guess what I was thinking is, could we squeeze in a small plaza with maybe a seating wall, a bike rack, a planter, something really simple. And I was looking at this area here, pardon my rotten drawing, but it would, there would be about 10 spaces that would be lost and an aisle, but you could still drive in and have an aisle for the next 2 rows and the next 2 rows after that. And I have a feeling because of the town's improved sidewalk and all that, you may have more bikers, so it wouldn't hurt to have a small bike rack there and a seating wall. I'll always make the argument that if you have people able to just sit and hang out at a place for a while, maybe they'll go to another store that they didn't intend to go to. So I'm pretty sure that works in their favor. So that's going to be one of my comments. And let's see, I already talked about coordinating the plans. So I'm going to do, some code review, but some of it's going to be suggesting to add similar plan sheets from the 2014 set. And I know you guys know how to update those. So those are my biggies.
Thank you, Liz. Is it possible to zoom in using the annotation or not? I don't see a zoom. Anyone know?
Hang on, look.
I know where the mouse is, but I don't see it.
Somebody, is that Victoria doing that? Mouse,
That's me.
stamp, arrow.
You can zoom, but I don't know if it zooms for everyone.
I,
Okay.
unless I right click, hang on.
Before I
Hang
go
on.
on,
Zoom.
Did that zoom for everyone or just me?
just
No.
you.
Oh, okay.
I just tried zoom ratio. No.
It's okay.
Okay.
Before we go on, I wanted to say to Kelly, Kelly, I think that you're going to hear positive comments about the architecture when it gets to the board members, with one tiny exception. You're going to hear that, but otherwise everything looked great on it as far as I could see. So let me go next to Tab. Ms. Moss, any comments?
I do have concerns about the location of the play area and it being kind of isolated behind the building. I recognize that it's nice up there. I'm interested to see the fencing because there is quite a steep slope going down to the back of the building. We still need to resolve the stormwater issues related to that structure. And I believe that the existing location for Mid-Hudson Regional includes a drop-off, and the buses go in the one-way loop that you talked about. And if there's another daycare going in back there, I'm not sure how the 2 daycares are going to funnel through, with some people stopping and some people moving through. So I'm just a little concerned about that. The other thing is, when we look at the parking calculations, I'm going to guess that Williams, as a retail operation, had a lot more parking spaces designated to it than the daycare will. So I might be interested in seeing maybe some kind of a, well, at least a comparison of the parking that's required, and maybe it's not necessary to put the play area up around the back of that building. And another comment that you said, the tanks are going, the propane tanks are going, they do need to go. There are a couple of changes from the approved plan in areas that you're not working in, I don't think. One is up by the gray building, between the gray building and the dumpster for McDonald's. There seems to be a pavement line change in there. And what was the other thing?
Pat, I'm sorry, are you saying that there's an existing on the site pavement change, or on the plan you see a
On
change?
the plan, there's a dark line.
I see what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm not sure what that
I'm not
means.
sure
Okay,
what that is.
okay.
And the trees that are planted along that stretch of access way seem to be kind of close together depending on what they are. I know they're called out as, is it Australia, Michael, or is it Carpinus? I forget which one. American hornbeam. And there are lots of different, there's a fastigiate form and there's the branching form, and we'll need to work through what would go best there and what the good spacing would be. And I think there's a bioretention segment back in there that never really took hold. And we'll need to talk about that as well as we go through this. Those are, there's 12, no, there's, the main sign has an extra panel compared to the number of suites that are shown in the building. And it appears that one room that does not access the other suites isn't numbered, and it only has an access out the back door. And that's on the Williams end. I think it's part of Antonella's that goes back behind and has a seating room back there. So I think we were kind of wondering whether that was actually a new space for work or storage, or whether
You,
or not.
are you
Councilman Krupnik?
seeing a new space?
Yeah,
That's what you're saying?
Councilman Krupnik, can you call up one of the building elevation sheets? I can show you.
Floor plans
Yeah, the floor, it will show.
there.
Can you guys see my arrow?
Yes.
Yes.
It's this right here. This is showing as a solid wall.
Oh, nope, we can't see it.
Wait, we lost your arrow.
Oh, oops. Can you see it now? Nope.
Grab the crayon. Seriously, why not? You
I've
go to view options.
never done this before. This area? This is
No.
showing, can you see it?
Hold on, let me see.
You have to click up where it says you're viewing Neil Krupnik and go to view options.
Yep.
Then you
I'm
can
on
click on
annotate.
that mouse or one of those arrow, stamp, draw, etc.
Can you see it, my mouse now?
No.
No?
No.
You want me to try to show where I think you're talking about?
Yeah, I see it now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you doing it, Michael?
You can do it.
Okay, so I think the area that you're talking about is this piece right here, right?
Nothing showing.
Nothing's showing
There
on
you
yours.
go.
That, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
that.
Okay, and I think I'm gonna check with them, with the construction manager, but I'm not sure if that's a if that's a new mechanical room, and I will ask them about that.
Okay.
So then Antonella's would be removing and losing that back seating area. They'd be changing their lease area.
I'm gonna check. I want to reserve, thank you for bringing it up, but I'm gonna check and confirm. I don't think we're taking any space away from Antonella's, so it may be an error.
And honestly, it'll help the board so much if that, well, I guess that's the existing plan. If the proposed plan.
No, this is
That's proposed.
proposed.
Yep.
It
So
is?
well, you want us to key it to like a little table
No, it's
with
not.
names? Is that what you want?
That's the proposed one as shaded. I'm sorry.
This is,
Hang on.
Is Liz, I might be able to save us. Do you want me to key this plan with names, like in a little table, like suite 12 is blah, 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 suite? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
looking at a sheet called A201, and it is called first floor plan. And there are several occupancies shaded gray, and the ones that are not shaded and are white are the this daycare area, I believe, right? And then this early ed center. This is the existing. It says right on the bottom, existing.
Yep. Councilor
that's
Krupnik,
okay.
can you call up the next sheet?
It's actually several sheets later, I think. It looks like that, but it's gray. It's A201.
See if I can find it. Hold on.
Thanks a lot, Neil.
How did he get the short straw?
And I could share it if it's easier, but I don't want to interfere with that process.
Well, I think what you're saying though is the issue that you'd like us to identify the tenancies keyed to a table, and then it would be very easy for Tad to put the parking requirements on that same table.
Right.
Would that be useful?
And Joe had done that in the prior approval.
I understand. Okay, so we can bring it up if you'd like to, but I do understand what you're asking me to do.
Okay.
And I guess what I'm hoping for is that, yeah, so we'll be able to look at this A201 floor plan and the parking calculations on, usually it's typically on your cover sheet, and all those square footages for each occupancy will make sense, and the use.
I'll kind of tell you what happened and why this ended up looking like it did. Originally, when we met with the board or the smaller group about a year and a half ago, this project was simply improvements to the architecture of the building. And that was it. It was a simple application and it was no real site plan improvements. Subsequent to that, you know, everything fell apart and tenancies left, and all of a sudden we were left with this open space. And so then we had a addition to the application before you, which was not only the architecture, but also these improvements to the exterior site because of the changes in the tenancies, which is a great thing. We just have to figure out how to get these improvements, you know, summarized and over to you. And then also talk about the architecture.
Thank you. Tad, did you have any other comments?
No, I think I'm good with the architecture and the buildings.
If you could go down, Mr. Krupnik, get one more. I'm sorry, keep going until you get to the colored elevation. Keep
That's
going.
it.
Oh, that was the plan that you were talking about, yeah.
So again, the last time I was in Antonella's, you walked down a long corridor and you could take a right into a private dining room or a
And it
private room.
stays. Yeah, they're keeping their same space.
That's why it looks funny to see that solid wall there, creating that one space with the back door to it only.
Yeah, it was weird the way that one plan looked, but they're keeping their space, which is what I thought.
Then that solid wall, Antonella's is not just one big long corridor. I believe it pokes out. There's a bump out to the right. Yes, whoever's using that right now, that's, I believe, where their private dining room is. So we just need to make sure we know what that is, that
Okay.
space.
And
Okay.
systems are there that can show those also for just reference.
We'll just fix it so that line is accurate.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Moss, any other comments?
Not at this part.
Just one quick thing with Tad, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
The
go ahead.
propane tanks are not owned by us, and so we're pushing desperately to get them removed, but I just want everyone to understand it is out of our control. So we are pushing to get those removed. We agree that they need to go.
At least noting it on the plan that it's for removal would be
Yeah, understood.
the start.
Thank you.
The only thing I have is that I believe this is a type 2 action under seeker, reuse of residential or commercial structure containing mixed uses where it's permitted under the zoning law. So we do not have to circulate for seeker, but we do need to send it to county planning.
Right. So let me start over with, let's see, how about if I start with Ms. Weiser?
So I think the building looks wonderful. You guys did a great job. We really appreciate that you, I feel like it's bookending the Town Center North and Park Plaza. I think it's lovely. My colleagues, Diane and Stephanie, have a few minor comments about the architecture, so I'll let them speak to that. But I just want to go on record that I do concur with what their point of view is.
Okay.
My one concern was also about the safety of walking from the building to that playground. It seems like a crosswalk isn't enough when you have that kind of truck traffic that might be coming through. It may not be too much truck traffic, but still just viscerally
Understood.
felt really unsafe. I don't know if a speed bump will help, but something, it just doesn't feel safe. So
Okay.
that's it.
Speed table, speed something, Good idea. Thank you, Anne. Ms. DiNapoli, comments?
Of course. I gotta make Ms. Leopold's night. I have a few. And I agree with Ann Weiser. I was very pleased to see the architectural changes. I like the colors very much, Kelly. They're very smart. My one critique, if you want to call it a critique, where the posts are, there are by the CVS and then by the regional care, you have these what looks like metal archways.
Yes.
That truly dates the building, and it takes away everything that the architecture that you're proposing is trying to
I
accomplish.
have to agree. So yeah, so remove the middle brackets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I read someplace that you're not going to have hanging plants there.
I'm sorry. Yes, correct. They were done for architectural reasons only. The architects put them on there.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So remove metal and then also
Yeah.
take the plants off.
Right.
Okay.
When I don't know how we can do this since we don't meet, but normally we get the color samples for the hardy board and for the pink colors.
What we do is we actually now we prepare a materials board that is a PDF that has the actual name. It has like the color, the name, everything on there. So you actually can have it as a PDF and it's a whole materials board, and then you can keep that for your files.
Including for the roof, right? Because I gather you have.
Yep, everything, same thing, like we would bring it to you, is we just put it on a materials board and give it to you as a PDF.
And I don't know if Neil can do this on A102. He can pull up A102. In the middle, there's a wall indication legend.
Whoops.
You see the middle
Yes.
one on the right? It says existing to be removed on the bottom one, and it's a diagonal line. Well, at the last agenda meeting, we will try to find where that is. We couldn't find
It
anything.
really should have been put on this plan. It's more of an interior work, and so I think he put it on.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's work that's going to be removed that came that's interior work that came over and laid on the outside, and it's inappropriate for the exterior side of the building.
Okay, so is that going to be removed then?
I'll take that
Yeah.
dashed line
Because
off.
yeah.
Correct.
We talked about the other one. I concur that more landscaping is definitely needed. And now we know not to do those grasses because we know what happens there.
Right.
By the playground, and maybe when we went the other day, we were looking at the wrong corner. But we were in the back on as far as you could go before you hit the slight incline, furthest point away from the lumber shed. And so that was where the two ends meet. That's where we were. That's more or less, isn't that where the playground's going to be?
Yes, that's where we're proposing it, which is the south end of the existing lumber shed that's vacant right now.
Because what we noticed was that there was a telephone pole.
Okay.
And I couldn't tell if the telephone pole, I'm assuming the telephone pole was not designed to be in the middle or at the edge of the playground, but is that safe to have a telephone pole that close to the playground?
Okay, I'll look at that and see. I'm
Yeah.
not 100% sure what until I see it. Yep, I'll note it.
And we might have just been off a little bit and had nothing to do with it, but I just thought before we all
Yep.
get
And
started.
Tad had a good point that she raised, is that perhaps if we can eliminate some parking, we maybe want to pull it somewhere else that we can do that. So that's a good point.
Yeah. And I have one more comment, but I think we're gonna go through all these and then we can discuss signage last maybe.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Walter?
All of a sudden, the sun came out. Okay. Sorry if that's distracting. I can't see a thing, but I can see my notes. Thank you, Kelly, for the changes, improvement in the architecture. I agree with my colleagues, and also including the wire, the metal arches, and the hanging plants. It looks really much better. It looks great, actually. I wanted to ask on the landscape plan, I want to reiterate adding trees in islands in that parking plan when that parking plan is finally designed. And it's just a big sea of asphalt right now. And to also request that the landscape plan be separated out from the existing site plan. There's just too much that's going to happen there, and it's very hard. There's so much on that plan, so I'd like to see that on a separate landscape plan with the plant materials. Let's see. You mentioned the materials board as a PDF. The thing is, the material and the PDF color on paper, they're not always exactly the same. I'm wondering if you can do a real materials board and drop it at town hall so that we can go and look at it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can do that. That's fine.
Great, I appreciate that. It's just colors on paper are not the same as the actual material.
That's fine.
And the signage, are we not talking about the signage right now? I
We
only
can
have
come back. We can come back to it. You can discuss it now as well.
one comment now, which is you have 12 small panels and 2 anchor panels, 2 anchor tenant panels. And with the alternating of the colors and using different logo, different typeface, it will help to differentiate. But anchor signs are so large relative to the other ones. I'm wondering if you can take some of that space, a little of that space for CVS and future tenant, and give it to the 12 tenants that are below it.
That is somewhat contractually driven, and I'm going to reserve a response to that. Let me look at that and see, because sometimes these are, and I know with CVS it's defined in their lease.
Okay.
So if I could just look at that and then I can get back to you.
All right. And I think, walking around the back of the building the other day, I noticed none of the rear doors, almost none of them have any signage on it as to who the tenant is. And while most emergencies might occur through the front doors, I think it would be a wise idea to label all the rear doors who the tenants are. And those were my
I don't know if the tenants may not want them labeled, but we can ask about that, but I'll look at it. I know.
Well, clear numbers, something that would, send vehicles to the right door.
Even suite
Even a
1,
number.
suite 2,
Right.
suite 3.
Exactly, they're not all numbered, so or labeled in any way. I'm sure I'm gonna have more comments, but I think that's fine for now. I've got to move my seat. You'll excuse me so I can turn myself away from the sunshine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dexter?
I concur with my colleagues that this is a tremendous improvement to the site. I'm personally going to miss the perpetual 3:15 clock. I was always either late or early somewhere, so
You can look at the one at the Hyde Park Town Center, right? At the Hyde Park Town Center North now.
Yep, but it looks great. I do agree that if there is anything we can do to break up the sea of asphalt, now would be the best time to do it. I do remember that there are challenges associated with that. So, I think the septic is all underneath there, and but we were able to get some greenery installed just, at the other plaza to the north, even though there is some septic there, by trying to do some carefully thought out plantings that are fairly inexpensive. And if you did need to remove them, it wouldn't be disastrous.
Okay.
But I do know that there's challenges, but boy, I would love to see just a little bit of green in there. That'd be so awesome. And yeah, as far as parking goes, that back area there, if you don't need all of that, and then you could maybe have more room to play with for the playground, I think that would be great, because I agree that maybe having a telephone pole in the middle is not the best, although I guess they could play tag, or that could be home base or something, I don't know. But just in general, the improvements are really great, and I'm
Okay, good. Thank you.
very happy.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up the rear, and Kelly, if you want me to email these to you, I can later on, because I already have
That
them
would be
written
great.
up.
Thank you.
But this is something that Tad mentioned, the stormwater detention near the lumber shed was never installed. That will need to be installed. The parking chart we've mentioned, because we need to know really what the parking situation is. And as has been detailed by now, both Ann and Tad, it would be possible to relocate the parking at the playground area. You've defined this as an educational use, and that will be reflected in the new parking chart. We discussed maybe what's going on with that odd little space that appears to be created as the 14th location, whether that would be, as you said, mechanicals, or what exactly is going on. You're going to clarify that. Tad mentioned the horn beams that are now shown on the site plan, roughly opposite McDonald's. So I went down the tunnel today with Carpinus, that's the horn beam Latin name. You just have American horn beams. There's different kinds. So there's Carolinas, there's all sorts of kinds, but I don't know if you're wanting to do a hedge, because some horn beams you actually turn into a hedge like any other kind of hedging plant, or you want single trunk trees, because you'll need to define that in through there.
Okay.
I assume you want trees, but if they're trees, single trunk trees, then they look kind of too close together. They're supposed to be about 20 feet apart, and they're much closer than that is shown. I agree that we need to have a separate landscaping sheet because it's too hard to read. On the site plan itself, there's evergreen landscaping on the south side that's opposite the new center, the new main entrance, I'll call it, to the Mid-Hudson Regional Early Things Center. That evergreen should be shown, landscaping should be shown in the plan, and all dead specimens replaced, because that's functioning as screening between a residential and a non-residential use. I agree that if we can find some room for landscaping in the sea of asphalt, as it's been called, that'd be a great thing. It was already mentioned that you need to show a fence detail for the play area as well as the surface. The current site plan does not show the former playground. There's a former playground, or there's a playground now for Mid-Hudson Regional. Is that going to stay for the new daycare area? Then that should be shown on the plans because it's not listed there. Then the rest of my comments are really about signage. So the lighting of the directory sign is not specified. I assume it's going to be like the others, where there's going to be a bar of light up top that'll reflect down, but that should be, it's not shown on the submission that they made.
Nancy, can you, I don't know if she's able to speak or not, could you let us know the lighting type? She's, Nancy's with GNS, with Glody Signs. I don't know if she's able to speak or not and let you know what that lighting style is.
She's muted right now. Nancy, can you unmute yourself?
She might not be able to. Okay, if she,
I'm here. No, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you tell us how
can
the
you hear
directory
me?
sound? Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. I do see here that it is not marked on there, and I know that it must be externally lit, and I'm not sure, given the height of it, it may be externally lit both from a bar at the top and the bottom, but I'm going to have to ask the designer or the fabricator which they decided to do.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Sure.
uplighting may not be consistent with the code if the lighting is pointing up. So
Well, it would be shielded the same as the top lighting, and the reason for that is the height of it. If you do just top lighting, it may not go to the bottom, so it would still be shielded just as the top is.
okay,
So we can
And-
show that.
okay.
It should also have a 9/11 address on it. I believe that's required by
Okay.
9/11. So that would need to go up where it says Hyde Park Plaza, I assume. Also, I know it's going to sound crazy in my part, but since these are supposed to have design unity, is there a reason why H&R Block is not in red lettering? If it's in red lettering, then you have a pattern there, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Eight,
That makes
eight, yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that actually, I think, in other words, On the left, it's black, red, black. Then the next one is Mid-Hudson Regional is red, black, red, then black, red, black. Then it's black, black, red. And I think it would be symmetrical for that to be in red and also show up more. Each one then has its own kind of standalone way of looking at it.
Okay.
Last but not least, the CVS wall sign is shown as having a white background on it. Then with red lettering, and all the other signs, yeah, all other signage is uniform with that exception. Is there a way to add that white background to the Mid-Hudson Regional Early Learning Center so that there's some balance?
Well, their letters are going to be white. And that's because their letters are white. In the background, the building color is the dark color. So the white lays right on the dark color. CVS, the red on its own lying on the building during the day is not going to be as visible. That's why they carry the background.
I understand why you proposed the white background, but again, our code requires design unity. I think one way to achieve that would be to have a symmetry of signage on the other side, another main anchor, to have a white
We'll look
panel
at
on
that
the back
and
of that.
see.
Thank you, Kelly.
We'll look at
Thank
that and see how that works and if we can change some of the lettering. Okay.
And the other question I have is not on signage. It's actually, there's a, oh, sorry, you can go back, if you go back to that same piece of, that's it. So are those, is that like a dental coming out over the columns? Do you know, Kelly?
The black things underneath of the dormer?
Yeah.
I think so. You want to get rid of them?
No, I think they look nice. I'm just trying to make sure, I don't know if they're in the tail ends of rafters or if they're just a little dental that's up there.
I was going to have Dave Penny, who is our construction manager on this, so that he could answer that, but he wasn't able to get on, but I'll
You can
ask
get an
him
answer on
to-
that. It's just out of curiosity. Then
Is
last
this
but not-
lighting? Is that lighting?
Not the white, the black, the little black things.
Well, no, I know that, but then there's also these white things over here.
I don't think those are lights, but I'm going to look and see. When Michael talked about or Mr. Chairman talked about the dental, then I saw those as well. So I need to know what those are.
I was going to say, that's the other question I had was, can you clarify what that is? Again, the architecture looks, it's a huge improvement from what's there now and from what we first saw. You did respond very nicely to the initial comments we made. It's just, we don't know what some of these things are. Yeah. That's not mine, I promise.
Put that on there.
There we go. So 2 other items. One, we will need a note just to say that the propane tanks need to be removed. That whole apparatus back there. I understand that that probably belongs to Williams, as I recall, so I'm sorry that they haven't removed it yet, but whatever, we just need to make sure they're gone at some point. And then last but not least, Board Member Pickett, who is not here tonight, wanted me to raise the issue of should more spaces be designated for pickup for Mizu Sushi and Antonello's, particularly as COVID continues. I'm not sure how you would do that, designate more pickup spaces, but I think he wanted to be showing that we're trying to be responsive to help our restaurants stay in business right now, as I know you are too, because those are both valued tenants. So otherwise, that's basically it for me. I agree with Victoria that this is a type 2 action, so all we need to do is refer this to county planning. I think if we have a separate sheet for landscaping, and if you can take a look and see if there's ways to increase any kind of areas for landscaping in the quote unquote sea of asphalt, this could be ready to go to her too. I would like you to look at for the design unity to see if you can put the whiteboard on the other side. And I see 2 hands. First, Ms. Moss, yes. 3.
The black dots under the, anyway, there was an overhang that came out on the building over by the barber shop. And if that's what that type of architectural feature that comes forward, if it's similar, it needs to have a good drain that goes down into the planting area so that we're not putting water on the sidewalk and creating ice. The second thing was for Nancy Forrest, the height of the sign will need to be calculated. It's currently on a fairly significant slope, so one side is much taller than the other side, so we'll just have to work through that and how that final elevation works on a slope.
Yes.
Make sure that the height is within the code.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
I forgot, I had that as a question. How will this location for the sign work since it's on a slope? Because it's a pretty big slope. Right
Well-
now, it's a dual pole.
There is a base there right now. Because of the slope, a base was originally put in, which if you go towards the building side is much lower, and then it gets, you know, taller as you go towards the street so that it keeps a level place for the sign to be installed.
Then
Right,
that-
and the measurement on the drawing is basically to the maximum that's allowed from a uniform height base. So we just want to make sure that the height is measured on the average of the slope.
Okay, so the height is going to be measured on the average of the slope, meaning probably center of where the base is now. That base is probably about 2.5 feet tall, so we may have to alter the shape of the sign to work with the square footage and bring the height down, then is what you're saying.
That's what I'm wondering. It's worth looking at so that we don't need a variance at the end when we didn't expect one.
Okay.
Okay. I'll address that with Kelly.
Good point, Tad. I think Ann Weiser's hand was raised as well.
Yes. Sheet A301 doesn't show the little white what look like lights. So this is inconsistent with sheet A301.
Right.
So I guess, you know, what are they, and are they planned, and what are they?
Thank you. And Diane, you had your hand raised as well.
2 quick questions. I know we had briefly discussed, Kelly, at our agenda meeting, by the signage by the road. Was there any consideration for any landscaping, some flowers?
You mean around the base of the sign?
Yeah.
No, I think because there's so much landscaping down there, and there's a little bit of instability with what the town, we're trying to work together with what the town is proposing. So we don't really know what I mean, we've seen some plans, but what the final landscaping plan is going to look like from the town. So the town is there's an acquisition that's occurring, and they're taking a bit of that strip all the way up, which is great, to put the new sidewalks in. So a lot of that landscaping is going to go. Hopefully the grasses go and will be changed out. So I think we almost are going to have to do this on the fly, which I know this board doesn't like to do, but we don't know what they're going to do there. So until we know, I'm hesitant to show anything.
Okay, yeah, it was just, we thought we'd better ask before we go too far down the road.
Okay.
My other question is a bigger issue, and it is the coloring of the CVS sign. I understand corporate says this is it. But in Hyde Park, we have never accepted that as the answer. And I think the CVS needs to step up a little and show that it is willing to work with this town. I think the other members would be greatly appreciative of it. They may not feel as strongly as I do, but I think it's unfair for the other tenants who are responding to the design features that are required by code, and they do not have to do it. And the white background stands out like a sore thumb against the beautiful colors that you're proposing, and the brand new architecture, and it just takes away. And I think it's very unfair to all the other tenants. Because why shouldn't they come and say, well, you let CVS, I'm going to claim corporate rights too.
Okay, I would like to just reserve to have a conversation with Victoria and the chairman regarding that issue, and perhaps can provide some insight for that justification.
Does it have to do with the fact that CVS is, I mean, I'm looking at this kind of the anchor?
I think it would be better if I can have a conversation with Victoria and the chairman, and if they choose to share that information with the board, then they may. But I'd like to just have a separate conversation with them about that. I did take a note, Mr. Napoli, about your comment, and so I'll discuss that with them if I could offline.
Because there, as you will know, with Mavis, with Dunkin' Donuts, there are several examples around town where the corporate response was, we are out of here unless we get to keep it. And they're all here.
I do hear you, and I just want to say that, you know, this landlord, as you know, has done a considerable amount of investment into the town and to the architecture and to the buildings and so forth. And I think we're going to ask for some leniency with respect to this singular request and ask that we're allowed to continue with this. We'll work with trying to do some design unity with that white backboard on the other side of the building, but we're going to seek some leniency with this singular request and ask that we be able to keep this as proposed.
I look
As
forward
long as we can come to
but-
some sort of idea of design unity, I think we can work with the applicant. But I'm cheered by hearing Ms. DiNapoli's comments because I agree. This does not really resemble any of the other signs. It doesn't also look like their sign at their other location just south of here where there's not the heart. But again, we want to work, we recognize that this is a very tough economic climate, et cetera. So Victoria and I will discuss, and then with Kelly, and then we'll get back to the rest of the board. Are there any other comments or questions right now? Tad?
Another thing to think about with the CVS backboard is perhaps if that tenant does ever move, that the white background would not be allowed to remain. And the other thing for the signage is one of the signs appears to have a lit outline, and I think it's the way the letters are constructed, and that got past me, and it should not have that appearance of a lit outline around the letters. So when the sign gets replaced, I will expect that lit outline will disappear.
Tell us which sign that is.
So I understand. There's an existing, okay, so there's an existing tenant that has a sign that slipped by, and when that sign gets replaced, we want to make sure that it doesn't replicate that same, okay.
Thank you. That wasn't clear to me. Sorry, didn't mean to be obtuse. So Kelly, when you get it, just contact us and we'll schedule an offline.
Perfect.
Zoom
Thank you.
Or a conference call, either one with Victoria, wherever Victoria went. There she is. I'm sorry, the grids keep moving around and I can't keep track.
I
At
think
any
there's
rate-
one more question.
Yes.
Ms.
Yes,
Wasser.
Liz.
Yes.
Oh.
So I know, I heard it 4 times, you're gonna have an offline meeting with the chair, but I do want to express my agreement with Diane to the extent that with a big anchor sign at the entrance, once people pull in, they're gonna find the CVS even if the red letters are on the darker gray background. So I just want to add that to my thinking when you're meeting with the chair, because entry sign, everyone knows CVS is going to be in there, and once they pull in, they'll see it. I did have a question about that main sign as to what's happening with the stone base. Is the stone staying there, or is it being replaced?
I think Nancy disconnected, but I will get an answer to you for that. I think we're gonna have to make some changes to that anyway, because based on Tad's comment in the measurements. So we'll take your comment into consideration and reflect that on the new elevation that you receive.
Thank you.
I am here, Kelly, and I will speak to you tomorrow and we'll discuss a couple of options.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Liz, you had another
You're
comment?
welcome.
Yes, Liz?
Just a point of clarity in terms of the scope of CPL's review. It sounds like, Tad, you're doing a kind of detailed sign review, and I don't want to duplicate effort. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, thanks. I want to make sure that even though you may have heard, we heard a lot of things here today, but mostly it's site plan issues, not architecture. We really do appreciate your clients investing in this community the way they have and the way they continue to do so. And as I said, we'll try to work with you as best as possible to make sure we can accommodate all reasonable requests, as they say.
Yeah.
And whenever you have a revised plans, just let me know and we'll schedule you on, okay?
Okay,
So
very
I'd
well.
like to get this circulated to county planning as soon as possible.
Very well. Okay,
you
very
would
well.
too.
I hope to have my comments done before the end of this week. And out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Kelly,
you.
we'll see you again shortly. Thanks.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Kelly. Good to see you.
Bye-bye. You too.
The next item on the agenda is the enclave at Hyde Park. We held open the time in which people could comment. We heard no comments. This is just a resolution to grant a 2-year extension of time to complete construction for the homes themselves and the membership club. I believe Stephanie will be introducing this resolution.
Yes, thanks. Resolution to grant 2-year extension of time to complete construction, the Enclave 2-family homes and membership club, formerly known as the Meadows. August 19th, resolution 16-49N. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the applicant a 2-year extension of the time to start substantial completion of the project to June 11th, 2022, and the time to complete construction of the project to June 11th, 2023.
Second, Ann Dexter.
Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Any nays or abstentions? Nope, motion carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the approval for Hudson Valley Hospice's new signs. If we recall, these were signs that were going on the redone exterior that we worked so hard with the applicants for. And Mr. Bikert of Timely Signs is here to present. Paul, welcome. You're muted still, Paul. There you go.
How's that? Good? Good? Okay. Sorry, you snuck up on me there. I was working on some other stuff. I do have
It's okay.
the file open. I'm gonna just share that, share this PDF. Oh, the host is, do you guys have a version of this?
We do.
PDF? Okay, so
We do.
I just got to note that the host is disabled screen sharing. So I have a copy on my screen. We can just walk through it if you want.
Councilman Krupnik, can you put one of the 2 signs up through screen share?
I am looking for it and I don't seem to have it.
Ah, then can you allow Mr. Bikert to?
Hold on. Yeah, I don't know if I can change that, but I'll just make him a co-host and so he'll be able to do it.
Okay. In the interim, I should add that Ms. Moss worked with Mr. Bikert pretty carefully on this so that everything conforms dimensionally, including the same size as a variance that was granted prior for the same symbol. That's the old sign.
Yeah, so I'll just walk you guys through this. This is not a sign that we had done previously. So we were coming into this relationship, working off of a rough survey of this sign, relatively difficult to get to because of the roof overhang. So we had some rough measurements, and fortunately, in the middle of the process, our client did notify us that a variance was in place for this, which we had not been informed of before. And so that variance clearly outlined what the maximum requirements of the various symbols were. So what we've done, the client really doesn't like the white box surrounding the logo, and there has also been some minor revisions to the type weights of their logo, and also the Hudson Valley is a slightly more friendly typeface. I'm just going to skip to the next page here. This is the new logo. It's got a much larger Hudson Valley presence, and the weight of the word hospice is a little bit thicker. And I just think it looks a little bit better. One of the things that they were struggling with is the variegated brick background that you can see on this with the colors that they're using for their branding. They really needed a more neutral background. So the architects suggested that they paint this brick, this Sherwin-Williams versatile gray, which is being used elsewhere on the building as part of their building renovation. And they're going to be doing, I think, all of the outdoor surfaces with similar, coordinated colors. And that's where that color comes from. It's a kind of a pale neutral gray, and it allows the the lettering to really just have adequate contrast. We kind of like, the client likes it. I like it because we don't have a dirty white box on the building. It's just really highlighting the letters. So there's 2 identical signs, one on each side of the peak. Oops, sorry. Where is this going to? Yeah, so these just call out the various sizes on the existing variance that was granted. And what we did is just we went in and made all of those dimensions match. That as a result of removing the white background, the square footage that we had on the existing sign has been reduced a little bit by maybe 1.5 feet. So I also just think it has a little bit nicer presence on the building. We're also encouraging them to paint these fixtures gray, so they just kind of blend into the building. I don't think with the raised conduit and the bronze, they're really an asset. So my suggestion to them would be to paint those exactly the same as the gray, so they just kind of visually blend in. Are there any questions?
Nope.
I think it looks great. I don't like dirty white boxes either.
They do have a tendency, especially under overhangs where rain and all kinds of particulate matter are coming down, they do get awfully dirty, and not a lot of people clean their signs, unfortunately. So.
Much improved. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a recommendation from TAD. We have a resolution prepared that I believe will be introduced by Ms. DiNapoli.
Okay, we're ready. Resolution recommendation for issuance of sign permit pursuant to Town Code Section 108-24.3A 4D, Hudson Valley Hospice Wall Sign. Resolution number 2020-14. Whereas 5 times, now therefore be resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board recommends approval of the sign permit for 2 replacement wall signs for Dutchess County Hospice.
Second, Ann Dexter.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations as always, Paul. Nice to see you and nice to work with you.
Thank you. It's always nice to work with you guys, and I'm really liking the Zoom meetings. It allows me to get a lot of work done while we're in the queue. So hopefully that'll be an option at some point in the future.
The only thing we don't like is tonight, it would be nicer to have seen the plans physically to point out with Kelly, et cetera.
Aha.
That's because we're now moving. Our applications before this, they started out when we were still meeting in person, so we'd actually gone through a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're actually beginning to see new proposals where we see the plans and everything's digital, and we're still working our way through that. But I agree with you. There are lots of advantages to this, including you can go right downstairs and eat dinner if you haven't. So that's definitely.
I actually did in the meantime, so thank you. Thank you very
Good
much.
to see you. Take care.
Thanks for turning my video off. It wouldn't have been fun to look at that. So, all right. Take care, guys. Thanks very much for your help. Always a pleasure. Thanks.
The next item on the agenda is discussion of local laws B and C as well as D. Thus far, I have some comments from Stephanie that there's the last line of a paragraph says clearly incidental to a recreational activity, and she thinks it should be used for the outdoor discussion of indoor recreation, outdoor, which I will write up. The other is on page 5E, noise. Adequate evidence shall be furnished by the applicant. She's wondering if we should define what adequate evidence is, meaning should they have an acoustical engineer requirement for certain decibel levels, et cetera. So I'll bring that up to the town board. I think their attorney can sort of root that about, but typically I think that would be trying to allow us a way to say, to decide what adequate evidence is, but that's where we'd be going is an engineer. We'd have to have an acoustical engineer, which we've had before in all these as well. Because for a lot of them, we've actually had to have sound tests done, which we know how to do that now to go through for secret purposes, but those are excellent. Anybody else see anything else in B and C?
No, no.
But
Not.
thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I don't want to box us in by requiring a decibel level, but I do think an acoustical engineer, there has to be some evidence, some objective tool. But
Sure, that was a good call.
I will add that, that DEC has its own listing of decibel levels for when things go from being background to annoying to actual ear splitting and doing damage. So we can make reference to that if necessary. But again, those are good comments. Anybody else have anything else on the two local? We've kind of reviewed these over and over again, which is why I don't think there's a lot, but there may be still some other ones I've got to go through myself. Local law D, the new one, deals with ATV vehicles. It pretty much bans them except where it's expressly permitted under certain circumstances or by the property owner. And this basically feels like it's going to be a lot of burden on the police and TAD, I suppose, if there's evidence of this. But obviously, I believe there have been complaints into the town board from residents about the noise and use that's unauthorized. Tad's nodding. Tad, do you want to give us any other background on this?
No, it's been a problem for years. It lasts generally until the kids are old enough to no longer be riding dirt bikes or ATVs and they move away. So it lasts for years and years, and it's very annoying to residents. And I don't know that there's any easy way or good way to handle it quickly. But at least it's an attempt. And it can be quite disturbing, disruptive.
Full confession, when I was, I think, in 8th grade, my cousin, who was an only child, lived on 20 acres outside Tyler, Texas in the country. We got ATVs and we ride them all over, but it was on their own property and we didn't ride them to the edges, et cetera. So I know the thrill, quote unquote. I look back on it now and think, is that really that much fun to like knock my head around a bunch? But you know, you're a kid, it seems like it's fun, et cetera. So I understand the impetus. I also understand, you know, that they're trying to make sure that if there is this kind of activity that you stay away from a close by neighbor, et cetera. So overall, I think that the law seems fine. And unless I hear comments from anybody, that's probably what I'll write and send it forward. This is a new process that the town board is following. They actually sent this to us for informal comments. This is not our formal one. So I'll let them know, but I do need an authorization to allow me to send a letter for local laws B and C. And basically, so far, it'll just include Stephanie's. I'll send it once I go through. There's something that Cynthia and Tad gave me, but I can't find, but I did send it. I sent a revised version with their comments plus mine over to the town board, but from what I can tell, I don't think all of them were implemented. So I've got to go through and do a side by side. Once I do that, I'll know more, but they were relatively minor. It was just rewording. There's nothing substantive in it when I worked with Tad and Cynthia that day. So make it a motion to authorize me to send letters or comment letters to the town board on all 3 local laws.
So moved, Diane DiNapoli.
second, Stephanie Wasser.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And consultants are free to leave. Before we go, I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss an employment matter.
So
May I
moved.
get one?
So moved.
Aye.
Happy weekend and all that good
consultant.
stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
May I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved, Stephanie Wasser.
Second, Ann Weiser.
Thank you. And I think I need to have Councilman Krupnik turn me into just the host, and I'll have to send him into the chat room, into the waiting room. Is that right, Councilman Krupnik?
See if you're able to send me into the waiting room. I'm going to have to stop recording and stop our live stream. If
I was
you
going to
can't-
say, yeah.
If you can't put me in the waiting room, I will just mute the audio. I will not be present. You can't see me.
I cannot send, all I can do is ask you to start the video. That's it, or chat.
Okay, so just let me know when you're back and I'll restart the video and restart the stream.
To let you know when we're back, do I send that as a chat?
Yeah, you can send a, yes, that'll work.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, the audio's cut also?
Yes, I am stopping recording and stopping the stream.
Now out of executive session. And as always, no decisions were made while in executive session discussing an employment matter. There being no other business, may I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion. Ann Dexter.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Ann Weiser.
Thank you. All in favor? Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Councilman Krupnik, Supervisor Rohr, for as always providing the resources to conduct the business of the town via Zoom and on live tube as well, YouTube as well. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Neil.
Good night.
Guys.
Thank you.